The following review is intended for entertainment purposes and targeted for adult fans of the series.
I just don't feel like there's a lot for me to say in recapping this show. And I can't say it, apparently. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and boy, this video's a touch overdue, isn't it? My review of the finale of Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills was posted on September 21st, 112 days ago. Admittedly, Beast Morpher Season 2 was just starting, but even that's been over for a good while now. I feel like I've probably been stalling this video subconsciously because there's just not a lot for me to say in regards to recapping this show. I've praised its cheese combined with surprisingly deep writing, if not characterization, but there's just not that much substance to it. If Ryu Soldier is 40 episodes of filler, then TTAF is certainly 38 episodes of filler and maybe 39. Only the premiere really holds any weight in terms of placement in the story, and arguably the finale could be placed almost anywhere. However, I have reviewed a season and a recap is needed. I've decided for the story, besides recapping the first episode and the last episode, to just pick out 5 episodes in the middle of the season that stood out to me because the show has no story progression to speak of. Then I'll recap the characters, though I also expect that to be short work because they're fairly flat, and then I'll do that lovely scoring math. A little note on that, actually. I want you to remember that I really have nothing to compare this show to, so I'm just going to be talking about the scores and the average, and they might seem a little bit higher when you're comparing this to almost any season of Power Rangers, to be honest. Just keep that in mind. Alright, let's go! The season starts with in the beginning setting up the story. We find out that the evil Emperor Gorganus is trying to conquer the galaxy by taking over a network of power portals that can transport things intergalactically. That network is protected by Nimbar, a giant blob of protoplasm that can for some reason extend a really disgusting humanoid hand when necessary. Nimbar protects the portal's weak points by selecting a team of Galactic Sentinels. Galactic Sentinels are basically Ultramen crossed with Battle Fever J, spandex-clad giant warriors. However, as I mentioned in my review of the episode, this episode does not make it clear at all, in fact it's quite unclear, whether the 4 chosen on Earth were indeed chosen or it was an accident. 4 snotty Beverly Hills teenagers are placed together for a science project. They are Gordon, a rich socialite with greedy eyes for profit and opportunity, like the finest Ferengi. Lori, a ditzy cheerleader who still manages to be successful at everything and Little Miss Popular. Drew, a counterculture poet who works at the local coffee shop. And Swinton, the geeky nerd who's good at the technical stuff. Swinton invents a secondhand smoke detector. Not a secondhand smoke generator, like I said during the review, because that would not be helpful. Gordon tries to take control of the project and some water is spilled on the detector, which opens a portal straight to Nimbar. Now, this seems like a complete accident, but later in the episode, Nimbar said that he saw that a good team had gathered and decided to bring them in. Then later in the season, they have to recreate the accident to get back to the cave.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
Anyway, the 4 reluctantly answer the call, given tattoos that really function more like implanted flashing beepers to alert them when they're needed, in which case a portal will open somewhere nearby. By the way, I probably still have mine, it just stopped flashing when I stopped reviewing the show, so oh well. Stepping onto the Transo discs, the team's morphers which are installed inside the cave, they call out either a zodiac sign or a word that was substituted for a zodiac sign to transform into the Galactic Sentinels. Lori transforms into Scorpio wearing a mint green suit. Gordon transforms into Apollo wearing a black suit. Drew transforms into Centaur wearing a purple suit. and Swinton transforms into Apollo wearing a yellow suit. The four fight Ninjabot, a giant samurai robot, and yes, the show itself directly presents this contradiction, defeating it by combining into a giant silver shiny knight called Knightron. The four accept their destiny as tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills. Okay, here we go, sifting through 38 episodes of filler. The first episode that stands out in my mind is the fourth episode, Switch. The team gets into a little battle of the sexes and fate decides to intervene. The electricity of the Electric Knight Voldeck messes up the portals, and after a battle, the Sentinels are gender swapped into an opposite member's body. Lori with Gordon and Drew with Swinton. They really only do the seeing how the other side lives thing with Lori and Gordon, and yes, I do still remember that this episode features Gordon in Lori's body getting kissed out of the blue by a male suitor without any warning or, more importantly, consent, and still find it to be a gross moment, not because it was actually Gordon, but because of the whole consent thing. Drew and Swinton have a little storyline where Swinton wants more freedom from his parents, and Drew takes the opportunity to ask for it while in his body. Commitments, the 8th episode, is an interesting little story, if only because they did something in this episode that I really wish they would have followed through on in other episodes. Nimbar uses diamonds as fuel for this whole operation because they are plentiful on his home planet, but he's run out, and they make the whole joke about needing gas to go get gas. Gordon's mother has a tennis bracelet with diamonds on it, but he can't just go and take it because he's a rules follower. Except that he does anyway, and then Drew puts it on for some reason and can't get it to come off. When Gordon's mom sees Drew wearing the bracelet, they stumble into an answer that they're dating now and the bracelet was a gift. Hijinks of course ensue, but there was some real chemistry between these two mismatched lovers, the rich, successful, business-minded Gordon and the contrarian, free-spirited rebel Drew. Nimbar uses the bracelet to go get more diamonds, and apparently it doesn't break the bracelet itself. Gordon gives it back to his mom and says the two have broken up. A shame, really. I actually wasn't going to mention this little quirk of the show, but something happened here in the script that gave me a reason to. If you watched my reviews of this show, you might remember me mentioning several times that the DVD case, Wikipedia, and IMDb all have a different episode order for this show. I went with the DVD case for my reviews because it's the closest thing we have to an official source. The next episode I'm going to talk about is The Universal Hitchhiker, which according to Wikipedia is the 20th episode of the show. But then I remembered to check the DVD case, and on the DVD case it's actually the 16th. This moved it past the next episode I'm going to talk about, so I had to edit the script and move it up above the next paragraph. Moving right along. Anyway, The Universal Hitchhiker feels like a toe dip experiment into the new Ranger introduction episode, but of course it doesn't change anything as far as the show going forward because nothing ever did. The Sentinels meet a man named Rick, a portal hitchhiker who it turned out used to be a galactic sentinel on another planet called Orion and wearing a silver suit. Orion's team was wiped out, Orion himself barely surviving, in an attack by a giant T-Rex Halloween costume called Pretoraptor. He became jaded and selfish, and now encountering a new team of Sentinels, he takes a liking to Drew and tries to convince her to abandon that life and to come with him, exploring the stars and being all jaded and emo and all of that stuff. However, when Lori is injured in another attack by Pretoraptor, Orion is convinced to join the team so they can form Knightron. He decides to keep traveling the stars and being aloof, but kind of drops the jaded attitude and becomes a little more open to helping out and being heroic. The 17th episode, The Y-Files, features something that you'd think you'd see a lot more of in Power Rangers: the government getting involved. Two government agents show up to start investigating Beverly Hills and the cafe in particular, and Swinton takes a liking to one of them, a successful, intelligent black man who becomes sort of a mentor figure. The man ends up stumbling into a portal with the Sentinels and finding out everything about them, But unfortunately, to Swinton's great sadness, they end up having to erase his memory to protect their identities. This will technically take my middle episode list from 5 episodes to 6, but hey, it's a 2-part episode, so I say it still counts. The only multi-part episode of this entire season, which actually means these are the only 2 episodes besides the premiere to have to be aired in any sort of particular order, since Part 2 has to follow Part 1. In The Psychiatrist, Drew's aunt, soap opera star Nicole, finally stops buying her excuses about what she's doing when she's off saving the world as a sentinel. Fearing that Drew is a compulsive liar, she calls in a psychiatrist.
Roll credits.
Who hypnotizes Drew. Still pretty screwed up, that. And Drew admits that she is a galactic sentinel. To the doctor, this is just further proof of her diagnosis, and he prescribes to take her to a care center in the desert to cure her. The sentinels drag the doctor into a portal to prove that Drew is telling the truth, and he makes a deal with them to not reveal their identities as long as he can come back and study Nimbar. After the Sentinels' toughest fight with an amazingly powerful monster that we only see in this 2-parter, Snake Trooper, the psychiatrist says that he's going to write a book about his experience, and the Sentinels erase his memory, solving both that problem and the whole thinking that Drew is a compulsive liar. That actually leads right into the show's finale, It's a Gorganus Life. Like many newer Power Rangers seasons, the last episode is a Christmas special. But unlike those, this is actually a story-based episode. Drew is obsessed with the holiday classic movie It's a Wonderful Life, and the Sentinels tell Nimbar about it when she shows up late. Nimbar decides to be the team's guardian angel when they're not serious about an end-of-year evaluation, secretly placing them inside a hologram that shows them what Earth would be like if Gorganus had successfully conquered it. Gorganus actually nearly traps the Sentinels in the hologram, but when they escape, he finally takes matters into his own hands. We get a long, epic battle between Gorganus and Knightron, which the latter barely wins. However, there is no grand conclusion. Gorganus just returns to his base on the planet Molecula, defeated but not destroyed or dead, and the show just ends. I suppose the implication is that the Sentinels' fight against Gorganus just goes on indefinitely, which is complicated considering that the show mentioned college plans for the Sentinels on several occasions. It's unclear if they had hopes to get a second season or just didn't feel like writing an ending. And even the finale could possibly be... I praise the show's cheese combined with the heater. I think I've been subconsciously stalling working on this video because when you start thinking about breathing. Okay, all of a sudden I'm in my own head. I think I've been stalling, which opens a portal directly to Nimbar. Gordon into Apollo wearing... No, Gordon transforms into Taurus. Alright, I'm splitting that. And why am I mixing up Gordon and Swinton? Nimbar uses fuel. Just actual fuel. But then I remembered to But then I took a look at the Wikipedia list and saw, no. Oh, wow. I actually wasn't going to mention this little quirk of the show, but then my phone went ding. My going with the... This is what happens when you ad-lib. 2 government agents show up to investigate the cafe, and, did they investigate Swinton in particular? Showing them a world there...